What's going on, sports card hobby family? Before we get to DPZ and Drake's Saturday show, and before I get out to coach youth flag football, we are here with, I just want to remind you about SlabMags 10% off at checkout. If you use Sports Card Dad at checkout, many of us have maybe a handful of really nice cards, maybe 20 really nice cards. You spend a lot of money on it and it's just sitting in that slab. If the slab gets chipped or dinged or something, you can have a really nice card that you now have to send in for a reholder. And that is not fun. I don't want to go back to the grading companies again. I don't want to even bother with that. And I think that most of you would probably agree. Also, surface and autographs especially, they can fade over time, and slabs don't guarantee any sort of UV protection. And so the Slab Mag, not only does it just display like a beast, I mean, you've got all these different colors for all sorts of different slabs, whether it be PSA or BGS or SGC, all sorts of different options. So SlabMags.com and Sports Card Dad at checkout for 10% off your order. All right, Frank, fire it up for DPZ and Drake.
Welcome, friends, to another episode of the Pick 6 podcast. I'm your host, DPZ, and I've got my good friend and co-host here, Drake Magruder at Drakes_PC, joining me for yet again another episode of our new podcast, which isn't so new anymore, Drake, number 6.
Yeah, it's episode 6 of the Pick 6. It's you know, you hear lucky number 7, maybe this is lucky number 6 or something. So it's hard to believe it's already episode 6. It's been amazing, the support that we've had, and you know, I'm ready to talk more about the hobby.
Let's do it. Yeah, you mentioned that there's been a lot of stuff happening in the hobby, a lot of announcements and mergers, acquisitions. Seems to be a common thing in our space. So we'll definitely dive into those topics and much more. I guess, you know, normally what we start out with is, where are you, Drake? It looks like you're home, so you're not traveling at this point.
Yeah, I actually left sunny, usually sunny Southwest Florida in Tampa. I was down there for a few days for work at my company's headquarters. It's kind of funny. I always joked my previous company's headquarters first was in Atlanta. First was Chicago, then Atlanta, then Chicago, then northern Minnesota. I always said, man, it'd be nice to work for a company that, was in southern Florida. And sure enough, it happened. So I went down to Southwest Florida, down to Tampa, and it was great. And except on Thursday, we actually had a tornado warning, and there was like a tornado that almost hit the ground. It was like coming down out of the sky, and it went right past the office. And, our office is just nothing but a bunch of windows and that whole sort of thing. And, the folks there were asking me, they're like, Drake, what are we supposed to do? Like, you're the safety guy. And I'm like, well, you guys are supposed to tell me what to do because I'm just a visitor and I work here. I said, but at home in Arkansas, when we have a tornado warning, everybody goes outside to look for it. So I'm not sure if that's the best advice, but that's what we do. That's what we do.
That's what you guys do. You go out to look for it. That's hilarious.
So, but then it was funny flying back. I was actually joking with a buddy of mine, Matt Person, who's a friend of the show. I said I flew from Tampa to Atlanta, and during that flight, I sat next to a guy from New Orleans, and I said I've already got like 3/4 of the NFC South like all covered. If only I could have found a way to get to Charlotte, I would have had the whole South covered. So, anyways.
You'd been covered. Your division would have been covered in full. Yeah, very cool stuff. So, any mail days for you?
I do. I actually, it's a wrestling mail day, and it was something I came home to, and I'll share this real quick. So, you see the glare. This is the 1997 Panini WWF Rocky Maivia, more commonly known as The Rock. It's a sticker card. So, you can see it's actually a sticker came out of a box from Panini. It was overseas and stuff. And some people consider this is maybe The Rock's like first official card, even though it's like a sticker. So maybe it's like, the Michael Jordan Fleer sticker, that whole sort of thing. But this card actually has an interesting story through the hobby, and that nobody really knew about them for a long time. There was a guy, I'll take it down, but there was a guy over in, I think he was in Egypt, I think, and somehow he had been hoarding all these boxes of 1997 Panini WWF, like in a warehouse. And so there had been no sales of this card, and like people didn't even know it existed. And so somehow he started releasing them out onto the market around like 2020 or whatever. And there were people that were buying them and ripping the boxes, as Panini was popular, again, and wrestling cards were getting more popular, where they started finding these rock cards. And, Rock's probably, one of the biggest, if not the biggest names in wrestling. We're coming off the heels of WrestleMania 40, and he played a big part in that. But in 2021, they started to grade them. And, the first one hit the pop report as a PSA 10. The owner of that immediately sent it to Golden Auctions, and it went for $35,000. And I think it was just the whole first to market. People had never seen it before. Everyone's like, man, this is rare. This is scarce. This is Panini. I know that name. It's the Rock. It's first character, Rocky Maivia. And then after that, it was just a free fall. And so I ended up getting this copy for $840. And it's now a Pop 17. And so each sale has kind of continually gone down, and that was kind of a price point that I felt comfortable buying it at, because if you look, it only sells publicly maybe once a year now. And so I think it's kind of interesting, but it's a topic to discuss. And I think we've talked about this before, in that, at what point on a card that's not a 101, at what point do you feel comfortable buying at? If I bought it at $35,000, I'm probably crying today, right? Or if I bought it at $20,000 or even higher or something like that. But I think it's just got to get to a point where, it's a spot you feel comfortable. Pop 17 and super rare, but it's a more scarce card than anything else. It sells a lot in lower grades, and I think we see that with a lot of the more iconic type cards, like the Jordan 86 Fleer and some of those type cards that are considered iconic. Not saying that this is iconic status yet, or that it ever will be, but it's not necessarily a rare card. It's just somewhat rare in a PSA 10. So anyways, as someone who is a fan of the Rock and collects the Rock and things like that, I was happy to be able to add that one at a price point that I was satisfied with.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I don't have anything to share today. I don't have any mail days this week, but I do have mail days. I've had cards show up, but I'm set building a PSA 9 1987 Fleer set. So I had a handful of PSA 9 of random NBA guys from 1987 from that set show up. Nothing really to show, and I don't have them on me, but just adding to the registry, which I'm having a lot of fun with the PSA registry and building that set out. So if you're not doing that already, it's not something you've tried yet. Boy, it's a lot of fun, and it adds a whole other dimension to collecting. That's a little bit nicer on the wallet, more easy on the wallet, but also still provides a great opportunity to scratch that itch of collecting. So I've got a handful of those that came in this week, but outside of that, I am pretty much nothing major. Great. So what do we have for topics today, my friend? What are we talking about?
Gosh, it's kind of like where do you start? It's what we always say in Arkansas: if you don't like the weather here, just wait till tomorrow. For you in Seattle, it just rains every day, so you probably can't say that. But
yeah, most of the time, it's kind of nice out today. I'm in Bellevue, Washington, where I work. That's where my office sits. Region, but it's actually sunny today. But it was supposed to be rainy today, so we'll take the sun.
Yeah, which speaking of the weather, I can't let this pass before we get to hobby. We'll digress just for a second, but being in Arkansas, we had the total solar eclipse this past Monday, and so we're down in the Hot Springs area and on Lake Ouachita with the family, and man, it was pretty awesome to see in person, and I'm glad our kids got to see it, and it was great to be out on the water in the middle of the lake and hear the birds start chirping and the animals, and it was just the weirdest glow out, and how it got dark all of a sudden, and you look up and it's just like wow, right? It's as a Christian, and we've talked about faith with Easter and all that, it's just it's a pretty awesome surreal experience. And we were talking about how this time with the total eclipse, right, it wasn't a surprise to anybody, but can you imagine thousands of years ago when people are out there and there's a solar eclipse and people looking up, right? You think it's the end of the world, right? You have no clue.
Yeah.
It's like it's 2:00 in the afternoon and all of a sudden it gets dark. What the heck's going on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. So I was glad to see that. Yeah, and if there's anybody else that watches the show or listens to it or whatever that saw it, feel free to drop in the comments and kind of let us know your thoughts. So anyways, but we were glad to have. First, they predicted cloudy skies, and then it cleared up for us, and we had a perfect view. It was awesome.
Great.
So, well, yeah. So I guess the first topic, right, we can talk about, probably the biggest one, right, is the whole eBay golden collectors, things like that. So for those that don't know, eBay, I guess, acquired golden, in a sense, and then collectors acquired the eBay vault. So there's, not really any immediate changes right now, but we know there's going to be changes. And so I guess DPZ, just kind of what are your initial thoughts? What do you like, not like? Is there something you want to see that you haven't seen, or what?
I honestly feel like people are starting to choose their lanes in our in the hobby business landscape, and what are we going to specialize in? I think it's hard to be one thing for everyone. So I feel like collectors decided, we're not going to be a marketplace. We're going to be a vault/grading space. We're going to focus our energy there. The acquisition of SGC and grabbing the eBay vault, I think, sort of leans and points them in that direction, where we're going to just focus our energy here, specialize in this segment of the hobby, and be very, very good here. I think eBay snagging golden allows them to have a higher profile marketplace for the higher, because eBay doesn't normally sell some of the bigger ticket items that golden will normally have, but then you have the power of eBay behind golden, can maybe get some more promotion out there. Maybe it could be a capital infusion for them as a marketplace, and all the experience and talent in-house that eBay has for being an online marketplace could help golden grow in their footprint that way. And then golden also gets to take advantage of the lower tier marketplace for cards that sell for much less, and maybe learn from that and grow from that. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for golden. I think golden benefits quite a bit from it. I kind of feel like Ken Golden's getting handed around by a lot of folks in the hobby space. It's like someone has him for a minute, they get kind of tired of him, and they pass him off to somebody else. But I think it's great for Ken. I think it's great for PSA, as they get to do what they need to do, and they're focusing in and honing in on what they want to accomplish, and simplifying the approach. But then eBay gets to strengthen their marketplace stronghold, and golden gets to benefit from the strength of eBay.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think I agree. I'm not really sure what else I could add that you have not already said. I'll speak more to the vault piece of it, as somebody who vaults cards from time to time, right? I've got cards in the PWCC vault. I've got cards in the eBay vault, and I've had cards in the golden vault. And I think the vault thing is unique for some people. Like some people don't want to vault their cards, some people do. I think vaults exist as a means for people to acquire a card, they've got it there, and then they want to sell it, and they just click a button or two, and then boom, it's back on the marketplace. So I certainly think it's beneficial for people who like to buy or transact cards frequently. It's also beneficial for the marketplaces, because it's easy to put a card out there. But the one thing I think that is interesting is from like a fee structure, and I think we've talked about this before, is the fee structures are different. So you take like a site like a PWCC, and if you want to take your card out of the vault, they have like a fulfillment fee, which is a percentage of the value of the card. It changes based on the time the card has been in the vault. They've got a shipping fee, things like that. So if you have a high dollar card, it costs a lot of money to ship the card to yourself. And I think, as I mentioned, PWCC does that because they want people to keep their cards in the vault so that you'll sell the card through them when it comes that time, right? Then you get to eBay, and as it stands today, they have a tiered structure based on the price paid for the card, but it caps at $50, and it's just that's basically the shipping cost. So once you get over a card valued $1,000, then it's $50, whether it's $1,000 or $100,000, right? And then you get to golden, and golden structure is interesting, where you buy a card, you throw it in the vault. If before 90 days you want to ship it to yourself, it costs $5. After 90 days, you want to ship it to yourself, it costs $1. And so it's interesting seeing the differences in those and how they work and things like that. And, I think some people prefer to vault theirs in one place or the other. So I'm interested to see kind of what happens, with this whole acquisition with collectors acquiring the eBay vault and then the golden vault. And if they, adapt their structure to more of a PWCC style, that would seem to make more sense. But then I think you're going to see more with the whole, you grade a card, throw it in the vault, and then it gets sent to auction a lot easier than it is today. So that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I think I'd be remiss not to mention the fact that PSA still has some access to marketplace via the vault, because now you can list through the vault. So it's an interesting marriage there. I think it's obviously a more limited approach with eBay, but then does that mean eBay can still auction that card off via Golden? Because do you have access to Golden and eBay through the eBay vault after grading a card with PSA? So maybe nothing really changes, and really ultimately they get Golden off the books, but they're able to acquire eBay Vault to maybe still have access to eBay and Golden via this vault purchase. So there's a lot of things to think about there. But yeah, I definitely, thinking more about it, there is still an opportunity for PSA to be involved there. Maybe it just simplifies what they're doing and keeps them sort of like at arm's length from Golden. But they're still going to be connected to eBay through the vault. So yeah, very interesting topic. At first glance, you kind of look at it that way and go, this makes some sense. But then you start really digging into it, like, well, not a whole lot has changed. Right. It's just like somebody's changed hands. That's really what it comes down to. And there's the financial aspect of that probably plays into that heavily, right? And how that looks from a balance sheet management perspective for PSA. So yeah.
Well, and the other thing we can't forget about either, right, is SGC as part of the collector's family too. So how does that factor into the whole thing? It's not just PSA anymore. How does that factor in with, vaults and eBay and Golden and that whole sort of thing? But I think, other topic is fewer marketplaces a better thing? And I think for the average collector, it probably is, right? Somebody looking to get a deal, you find some nuanced, auction site or marketplace. Sometimes you can get a deal, because there's been cards I picked up and people will message me and they're like, where in the world did you find that? And I'm like, oh, I found that on 90s auctions or Iconic auctions or Heritage or whatever. And people were like, oh, I only knew about eBay, right? And so it's interesting as we see these, auction houses potentially merge and shrink and things like that. I think in some ways it's good, in some ways it's bad. So
yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Some ways it's good, some ways it's bad. It's great for the opportunity to get a deal, and as a seller, it's nicer to have all eyes on a couple different places. I think most eyes are on PWCC and eBay. That's where most eyeballs go. The big items, Golden, you just have so much more time baked in. But, like Heritage is a very popular auction site too. The Leland's is popular. There's a lot of, the Memory Road. I mean, some of them you're not hearing as much, but yeah, there are a lot of them, which as a buyer, it's great. I think the buyer wants more marketplaces because it gives you more opportunities to find the cards. I think as sellers, you want fewer because you want to maximize your audience on any one platform. So it makes it easier for you to pick where to sell a card if you're going to sell one. Great.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, so I think we hit on, two of the big three in PSA and SGC, but we also saw some announcements from Becket this week and Becket Grading. Right. Gosh, for past few years, Beckett's been like the butt of all jokes in the hobby. And, from a valuation standpoint, we've seen things, gone down, but man, there's a lot of big cards in Becket slabs as we've talked about before. And, it seems like they, put out these messages and they say, hey, we're going to reduce pricing and, this, that, and the other. And, they try to just trickle out into the market a little bit, but they haven't really come out and say like, hey, we want to do this, and this is how we're going to take back our spot in the marketplace. And, it just makes you wonder what they're waiting for, or why they're not doing that, if they're just okay with being just okay. Right. And so, if you were CEO of Becket DPZ, what would you do, I guess, to get back into the good graces of the hobby?
I don't know. I feel like I would, jumping in now, I would not want to be the CEO that sat through the last 5 years and did nothing. Talk about a wasted opportunity. I just sat down with some of my team today, and we have a situation at a particular location. I'm like, there's a tremendous opportunity. And opportunities don't come along very often. for you to maximize and take advantage of, to advance yourself and to showcase yourself and to take it, to grow and to be successful. And you have to decide whether you want to take that chance, whether you want to not chance, but whether you want to take advantage of it and, be aggressive and grow and get in there and do it. Showcase what you can do. And I think Becket had that opportunity the last 5 or 6 years and did nothing with it. Literally did nothing. Yep. They did a rebrand and flirted with this idea of a different grading scale, then completely backed out of that because it kind of backfired on them, and then nothing. Mm-hmm. And I don't. If I stepped in right now and I'm like, wow, look at what I'm inheriting. Look at this mess I'm inheriting. What I probably do is I start looking at branding. So I would look at how do we rebrand this company. So then I go, okay, how much money do we have for human capital? Because then I'd want to go out and I'd want to recruit the best people from PWCC, Fanatics, PSA. I'd headhunt and try to find very talented people in the branding department. Social media, the analytics and the click-through rates, all this, really dive into the marketing piece of it. How can we market our brand and heavily capitalize on the nostalgia factor of what Becket is? Like put together a really cool montage or a heavy campaign on look who we used to be. We brought you in. I would hire Dr. Becket. I'd bring him right back into the fold. I'd put him on staff. I'd have him on the board, or I'd have him on executive committee where he is involved in a lot of the decisions that are being made for Becket. He's like the it's like Kentucky Fried Chicken when this other company bought out Colonel Sanders and Kentucky Fried Chicken. They hired him back to be the spokesperson for the brand. Who better to be the spokesperson for the brand other than the person who created it? So then you hire back Dr. Becket. He's the face of the Becket, not me. It wouldn't be anybody else. It would be him. He would be the face of Becket, and you basically borrow from all the good things everybody else is doing, take advantage of all the specials. I would, reevaluate your grading. I would lean into your grading scale. We're not changing anything. This is what it is, and this is how it's always going to be. We're going to lean heavily and hard into the Pristine and the Black Label. Mm-hmm. And so we talk about our history and the legacy that we have. Dr. Becket is your spokesperson. And you lean heavily into Pristine and Black Label. Nobody else has those. Those still carry premiums. I've bought 2 Pristine cards recently from like Topps Tiffany with Barry Bonds and Bo Jackson, even 7 Topps. That's a great way to play on a card that might be, even those are more rare, but even rarer versions of that card. That's a great way to play that game when you have a card that's, even in a PSA 10 is pretty prevalent. How can you make it? Where's a way where you can play it to get an even more rare copy? Whether it be NBA, a Mike Baker authentication, which a lot of people have feelings about that. I think it's awesome. You couldn't get a better source from a guy like that. How can you play on that? So I would lean into the Pristine and the Black Label and how that differentiates some of these cards that can be sometimes average and common into something very special. So you really lean into what makes that brand special, even without think about it. They still carry those premiums. Even though they're a dumpster fire right now and do nothing, they still care. That's how powerful a Pristine and a Black Label is. That's how powerful Becket is. That some people aren't taking them out of the slabs. I have a couple BGS 9s, these big Kobe's. I've thought about cracking them out, but I'm like, I just don't want to take the chance of going from BGS 9 to a PSA 8. Mm-hmm. I don't want to take that chance. So the subgrades, you really truly know what you're getting with a subgrade. That's pretty cool. Lean into that. Sometimes when you get PSA cards back, you don't know why you got the grade you have. But then PSA, they lean into the fact that they're really rigid and their grades are they don't hand out 10s very easily. At least that's the reputation for the most part. I'd love to know why we're getting PSA 6s so often. It's like kind of a weird number to just, he's like, well, we're not going to give you a 7. We're not going to give you an 8 or a 9 or a 10. We'll give you a 6. We're not going to give you a 5. We'll give you a 6 because we kind of don't hurt you that bad. But then PSA is still so strong, right? But they are purposeful. They were relentless. They know what they're doing. But yeah, BGS, lean into those things. Those are the things I would do. And hopefully you can recover the brand and ride the nostalgia wave, because everybody our age is going to go, yeah, finally. Can you imagine if all those things took place, how excited people like you and I would be? And all those collectors that came from that era would be like just jacked about it. We would instantly forget about all the garbage and be like, boom, right back in.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree with all those points. I think, on the business side of thing, I think it's good. Just a few other things I would add, right, is, real, like you said, lean into the subgrade thing. I think that's so big, where why your card got a 8 or a 9, 9.5, 10, kind of whatever it is.
Yeah.
You get that. I would also, is maybe take some of the things that PSA's done and incorporate that in and say, hey, we're gonna start to guarantee our cards for life, right? It's like with PSA, right? They've got that guarantee, and I think that's why people love them so much. Absolutely. Is, hey, if this is a 10, it's always going to be a 10, and if something happens to the card, we stand behind it. And I think Becket hasn't done that. I would also, you mentioned this, where say, hey, we're going to hire more graders, and we're going to open up a secondary office, and we're going to cut down on our things, and we're going to charge $10 a card. We're not going to upcharge it. We're going to guarantee, say 10 to 14 day turnaround. Your card's guaranteed. You're going to get the subgrades, this, that, and the other. And I think you really make some big splashes in the marketplace to get people to say, like, man, I want to grade with Becket, or this card that's in a PSA slab, and then maybe it's a PSA 9, and I really think it would look great in a 9.5, like even as a min gem or something like that. And then it just ways to encourage people, because so many people have been crossing Becket over to PSA for various reasons. What does Becket need to do to get folks to cross PSA to Becket, like what was happening 10 to 15 years ago? And so I think these are just a few of those things that really come to mind.
Yeah, great topic, great question.
Oh, for sure. Well, we actually just had, so I posted on Instagram about, submitting topics. And I know that Chris and Josh, that they had to take the week off from the crossover for load management. They're the basketball guys, and those basketball guys have to take off for load management from time to time. So we're here to pick up the slack. But we did have a topic roll in from football_card_dude12 on Instagram. And he just wanted to discuss how he feels like the best influencers in the hobby are the most followed card collectors. And I'll say I think I agree with that to an extent, because when you see those collectors and they have a lot of followers and things like that, obviously they hopefully built that up over time, and you can kind of see what they collect. And, I think that they can hopefully inspire you. But I think it's also one thing to be careful about is, that you're not influenced one way or the other just because they have a large following, right? And you understand, why people have a large following, and is it organic, and is it for the right reasons? And, are they showcasing their cards as this is my collection, and this is why I love the card, versus, hey, I'm showcasing these cards, and, in days, weeks, months are going to end up on an Instagram story or for sale or something like that. And so I think it's just important to, understand why they have the most followers, and, just make sure it's kind of a natural thing. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know. I admire, and that's one of the great things about this hobby is it's okay to admire other people's collections and go, wow, that's really cool. I may not have those cards, or I may not even want those cards, but that's really cool. It's really cool that the provenance behind the card, the story behind getting the card, acquiring it. Those are really fun to listen to and hear. And you can almost kind of take part vicariously through that experience with that other collector. And it's fun. That's honestly one of the hallmarks of the hobby. One of the great things about the hobby that's fun to share. Being influenced, of course you're going to get influenced from time to time because you look at something that's really cool. We're naturally, as collectors, always going to be influenced. But what I found myself doing more and more as time goes on is I'm starting to circle back into what I just enjoy. The 87 Fleer set was a set I enjoy. I love that set. And it's manageable to collect it, right? To put it together in a PSA format. I didn't want 8s. I wanted a mint condition set. And while PSA 10 would be so cool to have, I don't want to spend the money to put together a PSA 10 set of that. And I started going back in time and thinking, okay, what mattered to me when I was a kid? Mint condition. Mint condition mattered to me. So the cards that are in mint condition, and raw cards from that time period are, there are so many of them printed that you still see high population reports for a lot of those cards in mint condition. But still, a mint condition card is still cool to have, because you start going back to go, okay, maybe it's a 9, but take away the 9 or the 10 or anything like that. When we were buying cards, the sticker said mint on it in the card shop when we were younger. And that's what meant mint condition. There wasn't a 10 near gem mint I saw mint condition. At least that's what I saw when I was a kid. Maybe that existed. The people were calling cards gem mint. Yeah. But mint is what I saw on the sticker. And that was like the best version of a card you can get. Of course, that's an opinion, but let's face it, all grading is an opinion. That's all it really is. It's just an opinion with a slab, and it's a company now doing it. So when I thought about collecting, I thought about collecting mint condition cards. There's something about that resonated with me. I still have a mint condition set, and it's still attainable. And it's a little easier spending $20, $30 on a slab of a random guy like Alston Lister, or not Alston Lister, he's actually pretty expensive in that set, which is weird. But some, Detlef Schrempf or something like that, than spending $700 on a PSA 9 of Detlef Schrempf, because it's a PSA 10. And it just be like, I don't want a $700. You know what I mean? So, but I'm only paying for the gem mint name on it. I'm not going to dovetail into that whole conversation versus 9s and 10s, but to me, it meant something. It resonated. So, and it actually helped me out on the wallet side, and it made it more attainable. And I find myself going, hey, what's wrong with a 9 if I'm going to set collect? Because then I get a mint condition version of the set, technically, and that's kind of cool to look at, and it's fun, and that's a way to collect. So my point is, I'm becoming less influenced by the stuff I see on Instagram and other collectors, and more influenced by my nostalgia. And I'll give Cage to our buddy, or give credit to our buddy Cage. Flip those around, because he did mention about how he kind of going back to your nostalgic roots. It's something that I have been doing, and looking at some of the cards I own and go, why did I buy this in the first place? Was it because I really wanted it, or is it because I was influenced over the past few years to know that this is a great set? Now, I'll caveat all of that with, it's okay to own a PMG. It's okay to own some of these really cool sets, because as you've gone through the hobby and your journey and you've learned, these are iconic sets for the cards. It's cool to own those cards. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't have to just relegate myself to like 1985 to 1992 or 3 and go, that's it for me. Can't go beyond that, because I don't know. I never collected those cards. But ask yourself why you're buying the card. Yep. So that's kind of my main point. So you can collect in all these different ways that can hit those nostalgic buttons and still make it fun. You can get the grade that makes sense to you, because don't get you wrapped up in the 10, right? Because there's some people can afford that, or some people that really need to have that, and there's nothing wrong with that, but not everybody has to have that. So yeah, it's a great question though.
Yeah, for sure. It's a great topic, and I think kind of one of those last things you said was great too. Is when you're looking to buy a card, are you buying it because you love it, or are you buying it because other people love it? And if you're buying it because other people love it, odds are whether it's weeks, months, year, whatever, it's going to be something you're probably looking to move, because you didn't have a passion behind that buy, and you're probably buying it for the wrong reason. So I think
I've done that so much. Trust me.
Oh yeah.
So
Same
much.
here.
So much. It's even recently. So much. I'm like, why did I buy that card? Anyway.
Yep. Exactly.
Good question.
All right, DPZ. I think that's it for today. So
that's good. 30 minutes. We're kind of sticking to our time frame. I think that's great for all those folks that are listening on a Saturday. We'll give our good buddy Dustin an opportunity to listen to this episode and enjoy it before, because he likes to enjoy the episode before everybody else does. Good old Dustin. He loves good content. Right? We're trying to give him that. We also thank him, the Sports Dad channel and network, for allowing us to jump on and talk to all of you and share our thoughts and your questions and answer them. I want to thank everybody from last week's show and all their commentary and the questions and the comments below. I thought that was a very interesting dialogue and discussion. I got a lot of interesting DMs too, and thank you for all those that reached out. Appreciate that. Even those that disagreed, it's okay. We can all feel differently about those things. Those are things I was very kind of hot about in the moment. It was good to get it off my chest, and agree or disagree, it's always good to have good dialogue. It's got to always keep talking. But I hope everybody has a great weekend, enjoying your collections, enjoying your families, and life's short. Enjoy every second and minute of it, And we will see you guys on the flip side. You can follow and find Drake at Drakes_PC or myself at PC with DPZ on Instagram. Give us a comment below, a like, a share, subscribe to the channel. There's lots of other good stuff that Dustin puts out. And we will see you on the flip side. Thanks for joining us today, and take care.